You're such an asshole.
Dude, guys, sometimes you guys make my day. I've had a bad day. I'm tired. I think I'm getting sick, but and then so it says I'll pay you extra if you do late night Cappy voice. Like, do you really? I got a new microphone. The problem is it's like very too sensitive. The late night Cappy. Ooby goobity 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 goobity. Um, so yeah, if you want me to do late night Cappy, wait till I get back to the Northern Command where I have a microphone boom that works and I could do late night Cappy. But right now, I'm just trying to bang out this work as quickly as I can get it done so I can go hike tomorrow and hopefully not be sick. Cappy getting old. Cappy is not the young 30-something he once was. All right, we have an interesting request. If you have an interesting request, I will do it as long as you pay me over at assholeconsulting.com. Over the past 4 to 5 decades, women have been increasing demands on what they require from men to be considered marriage material. At the same time, technology has improved sex dolls and robotics. Do you see a point in time where a large percentage of men will stop pursuing women and simply satisfy their needs for sexual release and intimacy with the sex doll and mannequin? What does this hold for men and women's sense of satisfaction in life as each grows older? Me and Rolo talked about this somewhat at length on his video yesterday. Please comment on your podcast. No need to write a response directly to me. Well, I'll do it on the video because it's a topic specific, and I won't be doing a podcast until I get back home. All right. So, same time proof that. Do you see a point in time where a large percent of men will stop pursuing women and simply satisfy their needs of sexual release and intimacy with the sex doll mannequin? I don't know about intimacy. I do know about sexual release because that's essentially what you're doing, not to sound too crass, but you're taking care of yourself. Try to keep this one monetizable. Not even monetizable, but shareable. So there's sexual reasons, but you can't get intimacy from a thing. And who you really ought to ask this about would be Turd Flinging Monkey, because he has a sex doll. He has a sex robot. I enjoy his show because of his economic and political analysis, but then he goes for a curveball with that one. But even that's entertaining and fun in its own regard. But yeah, you can take care of yourself with whatever toy. Essentially, that's what it is. But I don't think you can have intimacy. As a matter of fact, you can have intimacy because it's not a human. It's a thing. Intimacy requires love and a reciprocation of love. And so you can, in your mind, fool yourself maybe, so you could live in a fake world of intimacy and imagine, like, what's his name? Tom Hanks in Lost or Stranded, where he's on the deserted island and he talks to Wilson. It's going to be a very one-sided conversation, but in his mind, he had his best friend relationship with Wilson. And I'm no therapist or psychologist, but I'm sure it's possible that you would create in your imagination a person. And I think that will happen to a certain extent. Men particularly will look at a female robot if we get to the technology. I know in Japan they have like a hologram that greets you in Japanese and asks how your day was. That commercial is almost 4 years old. And I was just like, what are you guys doing? Now that, especially now that I've pulled this numbers for this research I'm doing about just how interested women are in men and return on investment and marriage, I'm starting to see where an increasing percentage of men will create that world in their mind because they need it. They need that intimacy, even if it's synthetic and completely made up in their own mind. But it still isn't real intimacy. That's not a real woman. So to answer your question specifically, since you mentioned a sex doll or a mannequin, yeah, you can get your release on anything, sure. But intimacy, no, not until artificial intelligence, if possible, is developed to such an extent that it can pass for human intelligence. Even if it's like you program a ton of logic and all the data and you created an AI that was intelligent enough to have like 1 billion responses that like could carry on a conversation, there would still be a tell, not even a knowledge, but it would still feel artificial. So If anything, I know this sounds shocking, but I'm just shocked how much technology advances. I think, yeah, maybe not in our lifetimes, but down the road, kind of a what's called Blade Runner, I think you will start to see robots that look very human. I think there will come a point in time that they would almost be indistinguishable from human, like a Alita Battle Angel. If you've seen them, I didn't see them, saw the commercials. But I'm like, wait, I see. Oh, it's graphic, but boy, that looks kind of real. You'll always be pushing that technological envelope, and given what we've done with nuclear science, telecommunications, everything, I think the day again, not in my lifetime, but 300 years from now, yeah, don't be surprised if you see human, like a robot passes for a human and has the gyroscopic movements that it looks normal and natural, but that's just physical. Replicating human intelligence and interaction, that I don't think will ever be possible. I think, I'm no AI scientist, but I don't think that will happen. Now, what will happen are substitute measures, substitute goods. Like this is economic concept. I really want an orange. I go to the grocery store. There are no oranges. All right, I will accept a grapefruit. I really want an orange, but they got grapefruit. I'll take a grapefruit. And that has already been happening. So if you're, technology in general, well, that's happened since the dawn of time. Playboy, imagining that hot chick at the office, the girl you saw walking down the street. You get that is a substitute. What else? A porn, obviously, that's the main one now. And again, tune in. It's on Rollo's channel. Rollo and I talked about especially the younger Gen Zers who have never been around for a pre-internet world. All they don't know what the analog world. They don't even know what analog is. All they know is digital, post-internet. We saw a lot of this during the disease dating, not STDs. I mean the disease that we're all going to get and die from, where you couldn't date in person. It was all Demolition Man, Be Well, or Surrogates. And that's what we likened it to. Watch the movie Surrogates, which wasn't the greatest movie ever, but it's eerie how predictable that is now, combined with the disease and online dating. It's a Bruce Willis flick. And that, I think, is going to be more of that's going to be manifesting into the real world, because it's kind of already here. Some of the younger Gen Zers who do not know the analog world, only know the digital world, are being brought up in a completely digital world where they're afraid to meet someone in person. They're afraid to ask a girl out. They're afraid to be physically intimate with one another because all they've known is the internet. And I forgot where the question or the poll was, where people were like, would you be okay with a digital or internet relationship only? And a shockingly high, like 30, dare I say 40%. It was shocking. It was more than a quarter. Would they be all right with that? Literally the Be Well, and then what? Have sex? Like with touching? Ew. You guys gotta see Demolition Man. Great movie. Sly Stallone and who's the gal? Oh, I always had a crush on her because she's just so cute. Oh, I forget her name. She was great in the 90s. That is here for a certain percent of the population already, where we have supplanted real world relationships with digital ones. So you have the intelligence. The intelligence is there. There is another human at the end of it. It may be Boris lying to you while the girl strips and you actually think that girl's typing to you. But a lot of these gals on the internet are really, or you have a coromance, as I like to call it, where you are one-on-one with the girl and Skyping or whatever, but you never meet. And in my day, in the analog world, it was pen paling, or girls would say, I have a boyfriend in Britain. They're like 8th grade. What do you mean you have a boyfriend? I have a boyfriend in Britain. They're like yelling and like spitting, boyfriend in Britain. You're like, okay, all right. You don't want to go out with me. I get it. And you're delusional. And you'll never have your boobies touched. Got it. He loves me. We write every day. Those are the same gals that are divorced and fat now, because my generation is old. But modernize that with digital technology, and then, yeah, You have porn for all the guys. The sexual release has obviously been taken care of there. To the majority of sexual instances, if we wanted to measure it in a certain place, actual sex is now the minority of instances of sexual instances. But now that there's not an artificial intelligence or a mere porn star at the other end of it, it is a real live human being capable of interacting, being human. That is intimate, and the sexual release is also there via digital images. But it is not a real human, let alone what I say healthy relationship. But that is the path that's going now. So I think that we're not going to have the Blade Runner symbiotes, I think they're called. We're not going to have them replacing relationships. That's not going to be replaced. Female datas from Star Trek: The Next Generation will not be. We won't have that technology. But I think young boys and girls, or young men and women, I should say, are swapping out the physical interaction, in part because they're cowardly. They don't know any better. It's easier. And I'll be perfectly honest, I think most gals really don't like sex all that much. Or certainly not. We do know this. They don't like sex as much as men. Don't give me the no. Then we wouldn't have a thing called prostitution. And if we did, it would go both ways. And just being the economist here, the empiricist. I think girls are perfectly happy with that because they don't actually have to have sex. Boys are perfectly happy with that because they don't actually have to go and physically approach a girl and talk to a girl in person. They meet on the Facebook, they exchange numbers. And they don't exchange numbers, they exchange pictures, and they're dating. Right now, as we speak, there is that modern day digital internet incarnation of I have a boyfriend in Argentina. Well, I have a boyfriend. Have you met? No. Where does he live? 2,000 miles away. And it's like, well, no, I'm obligated. I'm in a committed relationship. Guarantee you, there's people in a committed relationship over the internet because you got the intimacy and a substitute for sex. And frankly, that's all a sex robot would be, is a substitute for actual physical sex. And so since that's already been taken care of with the internet, I mean, they've never, I can't say all of them, but many of these young people today never have actually experienced real sex. And so how do they know what they're missing out on? They think this is great. Yeah, she's showing me pictures of her boobs. And don't get me wrong, I'm all excited when girls send pictures of boobs. Hey, send more. All right. But that's not sex because I know I'm like, wait, okay, that thank you. I appreciate it. That put a smile on Cappy's face there. Thank you very much. But that's not sex. That's not. It's a girl showing her boobs. Thank you. But so do you see a point where a larger percentage of men will stop pursuing women with sex doll? No. Yes, maybe down the road if the technology gets there. Not intimacy, but yes, the sexual release. But I would say this has already happened today through the internet and having these digital romances. And then your second question, what does this hold for men's and women's sense of satisfaction in life as each grows older? Oh, it'll be miserable. It'll be miserable. You need the opposite sex needs each other, no matter what your women's studies professor told you. And this will just make people lazier. Men won't ask women out. They'll work out less. Why? Because they can get digital porn on the interwebs for free. And then for, what was it? Was it that guy? Well, that's not a good example. And if you find your girl on OnlyFans and you toss a couple $100, she'll talk to you and give you the intimacy or the faux intimacy that you think for maybe an hour. I don't know what the going rates are. But you will not have men and women together. Look, you've already seen a wedge driven between men and women, and you've seen how men and women kind of do without each other, or maybe we're with each other, but women have a completely different objective now in life, which has really nothing to do with men. And you've already seen how much that has tortured the two sexes. I cannot see what having no physical interaction would do. It just can't be biophysiologically healthy for you. I don't know what the psychological ramifications would be of having a long-term relationship on the internet and never actually meeting the person. Back in our day, we had those people. They were weirdos. I have a girlfriend. I knew a guy. He was like 40 years old. He was in this relationship with this girl for over a decade and never met her. It's like, what are you talking about? But again, it's kind of delusion. and they were off. And I don't think that's going to improve the psychological health of men and women where they've been supplanted by one another. Men have been supplanted by government checks. Women really don't need men anymore. I'm sure women have their toys, and they also will get their sexual release and what they think is intimacy with a guy that, the what is it called? Not the Pareto rule, although it is the Pareto, but a guy who's a 10 can keep at least 10 women off the market who are, 6s through 10s. A bunch of really good looking guys can sexually satisfy the majority of the female population, and they'll think that someday they're going to get a commitment from that guy. They're also being sexually satisfied by that guy, but in the end, he's never going to commit. He's like, no, you're a 7, I'm a 10. I'm going to get a 10 gal. If I am even going to get married. And so that will continue on, the alpha widow, as they call those ladies, that will be an increasing phenomenon. So girls will still be able to get, as far as they're concerned in the short term, a real live physical human being. Men, not so much, because girls are all chasing after the 10s and the 9s. The 10s and 9s will sleep with them, misleading them into thinking that I can get a 9 or a 10 when you're a 7. But we'll have nothing to do with it. And let's not forget the complete reprogramming of female priorities, where it's not even love or romance or husband or children. It is a career. It is politics. Yay! How fun and exciting! How thrilling! I have butterflies in my stomach. I wonder if that even happens nowadays. You ever have butterflies when you're young? You're going to go on a date and you're all nervous, like, oh man, I really like this girl. And when you look back at it, like, you idiot, you didn't even know the girl. She turned out to be an idiot. But you had that giddiness, like, oh, I got a date. Okay. Sometimes the excitement about the date, well, not sometimes, most of the time, the excitement about the date ended up being way better than the date itself. That happened a lot of times. So yeah, their life satisfaction, especially as they grow older, it'll decrease it. I think men we're further down this rabbit hole than the women are, so our expectations are more in line with what reality is going to be. So I don't think we're going to be miserable. We won't like it, but we'll be sane about it. But the ladies are just, I mean, you can see it in my generation now, where you have the Gen X spinsters who are just like their fingernails are clawing on 45's a new 25 and anything at any age. And it's great seeing it happen to my generation. And it's like, dude, we haven't even fully replaced each other yet. You could have had this guy, you could have, but yeah, okay. I can't imagine what will happen when, like, you've never had a physical. God almighty, there's going to be so many more 40-year-old virgins. Gen Z, I'm going to be curious what the percent of 40-year-olds by the time that generation are going to be virgins. All right. So there you go. Good question. Let's go to the super chat room if there are any. Got a couple here. Do not worry if you did super chats. I will be getting to those, the missed ones later on, a podcast that I'll do hopefully in a little bit here in the next couple of days. Andrew Ryan for $2. Real Chads go monk. No, why would a real Chad go monk? Why would you? Would you just get... Yeah, if you're that good looking, go have the sex. Absolutely. Mike, $5. VR porn, virtual reality porn and VR, the next frontiers of sexuality and human connection. Facebook said they want people to be able to have real connections through virtual reality. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's just an upgrade of graphics. I remember 8-bit graphics back in the 80s. Now, I don't know what bit we're up to. 64-bit? What are we up to now? David Little, $5. Thanks, by the way, Cappy. I work overnight security, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. There you go. That's the sweet spot. You get out right before the workers come in. That's the sweet spot. At $15 an hour, best decision, so I do not have to deal with Tina and HR. Thanks again, bro. Yeah, no problem, Dave. Make it count, man. Make it count. While you're sitting on doing that overnight shift, go train in programming or accounting or whatever. I think you were doing accounting, weren't you, Dave? But that's great to hear. Hey, Dave, I had another guy do this. Send me a picture of your desk, like from where you're sitting. I won't share it with nobody, but I remember having all these like dark hallways and dark rooms with just a little lamp on and stuff like that. Maybe I should go back and work security again. Is that it? Oh, done with that. You can find them on YouTube for $2. Dating market would improve if college disappeared. Yeah. College certainly does convince those girls to hate men. I will go along with that. Or that they don't need you, at least. And it would result in a drastic improvement in women's financials and their financial health when they're in their 20s, instead of being financial liabilities. But I'm not going to bang my head against that anymore. I've tried. I've tried helping out the ladies. I've tried enough to help out their finances and close wage gaps, and they want none of it. They want this delusional world of the college experience. All right, we'll see you guys later. Toodles.